Hi everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu and the Crew. I'm Rebecca, and today we have a new home decor craft idea for you guys using items from the Dollar Tree. We have a few projects to make today, so let's go over our supplies for our first project. We're going to need these fabric squares you can find at the Dollar Tree in the craft aisle. They have a bunch of strips of fabric in them for just $1.25. We'll need some dowel rods, just one for the tree, and then we will need some craft foam. I'm also going to use a terracotta flower pot, just the small ones that come in a 2-pack, and some hot glue scissors, some chalk paint, and some antiquing wax. We're also going to need a paintbrush, and then these little gemstones you could also find at Dollar Tree. We'll use either some felt or foam hearts. So let's get crafty. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint our flower pot. Now, these come in a 2-pack if you get the smaller ones. If you get the larger ones, they're just one for $1.25. They just started to put these out right after the beginning of the new year, so you can find them quite easily. So now we're going to just paint it white. You can paint it any color you like that matches your fabric strips, and then we'll paint the dowel rod as well. So you'll want a long dowel rod, or you can use one of the bamboo skewers that they sell in the kitchen aisle. We're going to add some antiquing wax with a damp paper towel to add a weathered look to the flower pot. Now this, of course, is optional. I always find it's easier to add this antiquing wax, or even just some watered down brown paint will work. If you use a damp towel or a baby wipe even will work. It helps to just spread the wax out, and you can remove the wax if you get too much on in one spot all in one step. So this is what it looks like. We're going to let that dry. Then we're going to open up the fabric strips, and we're going to start arranging them by pattern. There's quite a few in this bag, as you can see here, and we're going to cut these into 9-inch pieces. You can cut the whole bag down if you want to at one time, or you can just cut like 2 strips at a time and then cut more if you end up needing more. But I ended up just cutting the whole bag down. I figured I could make more than one tree if I didn't use all of the pieces with the first one. And of course, I arrange these by pattern, and I keep these in separate piles. So when I'm putting the tree together, it's a lot easier to just grab what piece comes next. If you don't care about the pattern, you could just throw these all together in a pile after you cut them and just pick it through them randomly. So then to attach these, it's so easy. We're just doing a knot around a dowel rod. So super simple. You're going to start at the bottom and work your way towards the top. I like to make sure that I leave at least 1 inch or 2, preferably 2 at the bottom, so that you'll have enough room for the dowel rod to go down into the flower pot and the craft foam that we're going to use. But really all you're doing is making sure you have the fabric centered before you tie the knot, and then you want to slide the fabric down really far. You want them super close together, as close as you could get them. So really pack these in tight, because we're going to spin these around to make a tree. They're not going to be laying flat like you see here. But this is just to help get the pieces on and get them nice and tight and squished up together by keeping them flat. So once you have them all on there, really pack them in. Then you're going to take your scissors and just cut these at an angle. So you have the smaller pieces at the top and the wider pieces at the bottom. So it has more of a tree shape when you start spinning the fabric pieces. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and I make sure I have it all fixed up here, and then I just start taking each individual piece and I just give it a small spin on the dowel rod, and I just keep doing this until I have them in alternating positions, and you just keep working until you have it all kind of fluffed up and it looks more like a tree. Now the fabric pieces kind of get caught up on each other a little bit. So as you're turning, you're definitely want to keep fluffing up the fabric pieces to make sure they're not caught up on the ones next to it. And that'll help you see the shape a little bit better. If they're all kind of caught up on each other, then it's hard to see the shape and know where you're going to need to trim, if you need to trim any pieces that look a little bit too long. And really, I wouldn't trim anything until you get it into the flower pot, because sometimes that changes the whole look of the tree. So now taking that pot that the paint has dried on, we're going to put some craft foam in the flower pot. And then I found this pool noodle knife at Dollar Tree a few weeks back. I absolutely love it. I always seem to find it in the craft aisle, but it's closer to like the vases, the candle holders, and mirrors for some reason. So if you haven't found them yet, that's where I would look at your store, but they're a great product for just $1.25. I'm going to keep cutting this foam and popping it down into that flower pot. You want to pack it pretty tight because you want to make sure that it's not going to come out, and then you don't have to use any glue either if you pack it in there pretty tight. Then add some hot glue to your dowel rod that you left empty, and then pop that right into the flower pot right in the center to help hold it in place, and then fluff up your ribbon. And now we can start trimming if we need to. So it really does change the shape, especially when you push it all the way down. It kind of helps those fabric pieces be pushed up at the bottom, which makes them look wider than they do when they're not in the flower pot. So that's why I think it's real important not to start cutting or trimming until you have it in the flower pot. Then just dovetail all the ribbon. It kind of makes it look a little bit nicer on the ends. We're going to make a tree topper now using 2 foam hearts. And we just glue the top and the sides, leave the bottom open, and glue one of these cute gemstones to each side. And then we will add a little bit more glue to the dowel, and then slide the topper right on and squeeze it together so the glue dries all on there and we don't see any open spaces. And then I took a few more of those rhinestone hearts from Dollar Tree. I glue them around the fabric just to make them look like ornaments. And I just did that all the way around. And this is our finished tree. So cute. They look really cute on those tiered trays. Now the supplies for our second project. So we're going to be using this solid wood heart sign, and then we'll use the tiered heart sign and one of the galvanized metal hearts. We'll need an LED light, also some sanding block, sandpaper, or an emery board. We'll need a razor blade, and then some hot glue and scissors. We're also going to use these craft beads and one of these flexible stencils. We're going to need a bath sponge to help with our stencil painting, and then we'll use the chalk paint in white and some red crafter square paint. I'm also going to need some coordinating ribbon to make a bow. So let's get crafty. So the very first thing we're going to do is remove all the hangers for these signs. We'll take the center of that wood heart and we're going to set that aside because we're going to use that in our last project. We won't need it for this one. As you can see, that metal heart fits perfectly with that wood outline of the larger wood heart, and it's perfect for this project. So all we're going to do is paint the border heart here with some dark red paint. It looks pretty light. I think it's just because of the light that I had on, but it's actually a pretty dark paint. It's kind of like a Tuscan red color. And we're going to paint the inside and outside edge of the heart as well, because you'll be able to see those from the side. The middle one, not so much, but the outside you will. And you can paint the back if you want. It's really up to you. So now once it's dry, we're going to take that stencil. I cut it in half because I only needed half of it, and they're actually not put together anyways. There's this line between the two pieces, so it was easier to work with just the one piece. So I cut the stencil in half, and I just lay that on top of the heart, and I start dabbing with the chalk paint and that bath sponge. Now, if I was using the acrylic paint from Dollar Tree, I would recommend taping this down because you're going to get paint underneath of the stencil. But since I'm using the chalk paint, it's a lot thicker of a paint, I find it a lot easier to just lay the stencil right on top and then just dab with the paint. It's not going to go underneath, or at least it shouldn't. And you want to make sure that you're not dabbing at an angle. You just want to go straight up and down so that you're not forcing any paint underneath of your stencil. So there's the first portion done, and we'll just keep working in this manner all the way around the heart until we have the whole entire border done with the stencil. Now, when you're lining it up, you don't really have to be super critical of yourself, trying to get the pieces to line up exactly. Since it's so decorative, it's real easy just to put that stencil on kind of anywhere, and it looks nice when you're done. And this is what mine looks like. I didn't try to line it up and make sure every piece matched. It's quite easy to make it look nice. Just go ahead and paint it. Don't be too hard on yourself. So now we're going to take that wood heart. We're going to put some glue on the back of it, And then we will glue this to that metal heart and create this really cute layered effect. And here's what it looks like from the back. We're going to make sure it's well attached all the way around. And now we're going to set that aside and start working on the large heart for the background. I took that chalk paint that I had, and I'm going to just go ahead and paint one coat of paint on the heart. And I do paint the border, but I don't paint the back of the heart. This is going to be hanging. I'm going to replace the hanger, and so I'm not going to see the back at all. It's going to be up against the wall, so it's really up to you if you're going to want to paint the back or not. So we'll let this dry for just a little while, and then we're going to go in with our stencil, and we're going to stencil the top left corner. So this time I'm going to use the red paint. I'm using just a small amount. I didn't change the sponge. I'm just using the one I used when I did the white stencil. So it's really up to you if you want to change it or not. I didn't think it would matter since the red paint is so dark that it pretty much turned into the color that I wanted it to be just by using it as is. And there's only a small amount of paint left on the sponge anyway, so there really wasn't that much to affect it. So that's the top. Now we're not going to see much of the heart. We're going to mainly see the border. So to save some time, I just went in with a small detail brush and did these little squiggly lines around the rest of the border that you will see from behind the top when we put this all together. So it's up to you if you want to stencil the whole back of it or not. I kind of liked it just like this. So then I take my LED light, I trace it right in the middle with a pencil, and then I take a razor blade and I start cutting these pie-shaped pieces, and I just go over them a bunch of times until I start making my way through the wood, and I cut it out all the way around as best I can with the razor blade. It's not going to be perfect, but you want to get it as close as you can so you have a nice tight fit, because you don't want the light falling out, but you want to be able to slip it through the back there without much trouble. Once you have the light in, you're going to want to flip it over and put some hot glue around the edge just to make sure that it stays in. And we'll let that dry for a few minutes. Now I'm taking a craft stick, and I was just measuring how high I'm going to need the beads to be so that the front of this sign is not touching the candle. So it was 2 beads high, was about the right amount, so I would be lifted just high enough to make it past the top of the candle. So I'm just gluing 2 sets of beads together, and I did 7 sets in all, so you'll need 14 beads if you glue these on exactly how I'm doing mine. And you just want to go in and add some hot glue to the back of your galvanized metal heart, and then glue the little risers on. And make sure the glue is dried all the way before you attach it to the backing. So here they are all on. So what we're going to do is we're going to center this onto the back, and then you want to take a pencil and you're going to mark where each set of risers is that you created with the beads, and that's how you're going to know where to put your glue to glue this all together. Just go in and put a generous amount of glue for each spot, and then glue this together, line it up, and you'll want to hold on to it to make sure that they all reach the backing and glue on really nice. And I turned the light on so you can see the light in the background. It's kind of hard to see from this angle. You can see the edge of that mandala and then the trim. It's just the angle that it's at. Once we hang it, you'll be able to see the border. Now we're just going to replace the hanger in the back. We're just taking some twine and slipping it through the hole and then tying a knot. And you can make this as long or short as you want. You could add beads to the hanger as well if you would like to do that. That would look pretty. Now we're going to make a large bow for the center of this light. We're just taking some ribbon pieces. We're creating a loop and gluing those together. And we'll do the same thing with each piece of ribbon. And then we're going to just bunch them up in the middle and start layering the bow. So we've got the burlap pieces in the back. Then I add some red ribbon. And then we'll do this mesh ribbon. All of these were found at the Dollar Tree. And then you can attach it in the middle. I'm using some twine to gather this all together in the center. You could use a zip strip. You could use wire, another piece of ribbon. It's really up to you. And then I cut the large red loops and I am dovetailing those just to make them a little bit smaller. I also took another bow and made a few more loops and I glued a smaller bow right to the center. So once I have my bow made, I tried to figure out where I wanted exactly to place it. I decided right in the center. So I'm just going to attach that with some hot glue. And you want to hold that in place while it dries just to make sure that it stays down flat. And then you can fluff up the pieces once you have it glued all the way down. And I had a laser cut key. It comes in like a 6-pack. They have hearts and ladybugs and things. And I glued a little key to one of the ribbons. And that's what it looks like hanging. As you can see more of the mandala border once it's hanging. It's a lot easier to see that border from the background and then the light that shines out from the sides. So now let's go over our supplies for our third and final project. We're going to use that center heart from the wood heart that we just used in the last project. We just removed the hanger and then we set that aside to use for this project. Then we're going to use those flexible stencils again, some craft beads. They have square and round. We're going to use both for this one. And then we'll need some of that red paint that we used earlier, the white chalk paint as well. We'll need a paintbrush, the sponge, and then some twine or ribbon of your choice. We're going to need some hot glue, some scissors. I'm using some berry garland and a little bit of wire. We're going to go ahead and just paint this heart the exact same color we painted the last heart. I actually painted this at the same time. So when I was doing the last project, I already had the red paint out. And I knew I wanted this heart to be red, so I went ahead and just painted it right at the same time. That way it would be dry when I was ready to use it. So if you're going to paint yours the same color or do the same craft, then of course you could do that at the same time to save yourself a little bit of time waiting for the paint to dry. And we're just going to do a thin coat because we're going to do that stencil on top of the heart. Now this one, I'm going to use the whole mandala. That's the one that we cut in half. Like I said, it came in 2 pieces anyways. You can see that purple strip at the bottom of it. So it's just half of the mandala. And we're using the chalk paint. I did wait a few minutes for it to dry before I line it up and add the second half. I just don't want to smudge the paint that was already there. Then when I finished doing the whole stencil, I noticed that a few pieces on the edge looked very bright red, didn't have any of the stencil on it. So what I did is I just went in and put a few little pieces where I thought it looked a little plain. And I really didn't care what part of the stencil I was using. I just went in and just dabbed a little bit of the stencil on. And that's what it looks like. I took one of those laser cut hearts and some twine, some beads, and we're going to add some cute little tassels to the heart. So to make a tassel, you just want to wrap the twine around your fingers, about 3 fingers, probably 10 times. And then you'll bind it up at the top with another piece of twine and then just cut the loop at the bottom to make a tassel. Then you just attach the heart and some beads to another piece of twine, and we string that right through the holes that were holding this heart to the larger heart when it was originally put together with the DIY heart sign. So I add all those little details. Then that berry garland I told you I was going to use, I just wrap that around a pencil to curl it up, and then I fold it in half. I lift up the tassels, and then I'm just going to glue it underneath. I also made a very simple twine bow, and I add that on top of all of these little tassels here to hide the hole where all of the twine is going through. Then take a piece of floral wire and fish that through the top, and you can string some beads on. I'm just doing a natural bead and a red bead, all from Dollar Tree. And once I have about 3 inches worth of beads, I just take that wire at the top and create a loop, and that will be the hanger. Very simple and easy to make, and this can go anywhere. And here's some close-ups of all the little details, the bow. And that's it for today's video. I hope you liked the 3 projects we came up with for you today. I really enjoyed making these. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you next time.